welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are magic rules you might be getting wrong once again. And as usual, I'm just going over comments that I see on videos, right? Whenever I'm reading the comments for any of my videos on various different topics, I grab those comments that I see that are a rules interactions question that I want to answer on my channel so that everyone can see and it can be clarified for everyone, right? So let's start out with a very simple one. So is tapping a creature in response to a creature that is declared attacking to remove it from combat possible? No, it is not, okay? Once you declare an attacker, and again, you can go watch my combat rules video to get into the clarification about the specific things that need to go on during combat. You have the at the beginning of combat step, and then you have declare attacker step, and whoever's turn it is going to declare their attackers. Everyone else is just sitting around waiting, and I decide I'm going to attack with these three creatures right here. And if they don't have vigilance, I'm going to turn them sideways and declare them as an attacker, and then my opponents can do stuff. Now, of course, this was a response I got in the comments of a video I did recently talking about how tapping a creature after it's already tapped doesn't do anything. So no, tapping that creature after it's already declared as an attacker doesn't remove it from combat. It doesn't make it so that it's not attacking anymore. It doesn't do anything at all. And in fact, if I have a creature with vigilance that I'm attacking with, right, of course, it doesn't have to tap to attack. I declare it as an attacker, and then after I've declared it as an attacker, you decide to tap it down. Okay, it's tapped now, but that doesn't change it being an attacker. It is still attacking you. Tapping it doesn't do anything. I mean, it taps it, but it doesn't remove it from combat. Talked about If High Arcanist in a Underwhelming Commanders video I did, where that's an interesting interaction because, of course, your commander has vigilance and also has that Maze of If ability. Tap, untap, target attacking creature. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. So, of course, that's going to prevent the damage that that creature is doing, but it's still an attacking creature. Once you declare a creature as an attacker, it is an attacking creature for the entirety of the combat phase unless it is actually removed from combat. And of course, tapping it or untapping it or using the If ability isn't removing it from combat. So you can actually get into some shenanigans here where I attack with my If High Arcanist, and of course, it's got vigilance and it can use its ability on itself. So I'm already attacking with it, so it is now an attacking creature, which means it is a viable target for its own ability. I can tap my If Arcanist to untap it and prevent all damage it would deal this turn, which of course then untaps it, so I can use the ability again. So I am in the middle of combat here, and I can continuously tap and untap my If High Arcanist because it is continuing to be an attacking creature, so it's a valid target for that ability, and I can infinitely untap and tap my if I want to, which typically isn't really going to do anything unless I have, say, a Wake Thrasher in play, which cares about me untapping things, so I can make that creature infinitely big, right? That's something that you can do in that deck. So once you declare a creature as an attacker, all the tapping and untapping you do does absolutely nothing. It does not remove it from combat. You have to use a card like Reconnaissance to actually remove it from combat, which says pay 0, remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. So that will actually remove the creature from combat, so it is no longer an attacking creature. That is the difference there. All right, let's move on to another rules interaction here, a specific one with Torwaki the Younger and Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin. And I guess I could include this in my wrong card in the wrong deck video series, but again, no, those are sort of rules interactions videos as well. And I had this question in the comments that yes, this does fall into the wrong card category, but also is a rule interaction that works with a lot of other things as well. So Ob Nixilis says whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin, exile a top card of your library until your end step, you may play that card. So this is a commander that wants your opponents to be taking exactly 1 damage. And if you put Torwaki the Younger in the deck, that might shut off your commander, right? Because it says if another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 to that permanent player instead. And of course, probably a lot of the effects you're putting in your Ob Nixilis deck are going to be non-combat damage being done to your opponents. So of course, when you do so, Torwaki's going to deal an additional damage. So that's great, right? The only problem is this is a replacement effect. It says that much damage +1 to that permanent player instead. So if you have an effect that is dealing exactly 1 damage to, say, your opponent, Torwaki is going to say, okay, well, instead, I'm going to replace that damage with 1 +1, which of course is 2. So they're going to be taking 2 damage, which means they're going to lose exactly 2 life, they're not going to be losing exactly 1 life. So this is a real nombo here. Funny enough, the Torwalkie probably will work with a lot of the effects you put in your Ob Nixilis deck, and vice versa. I guess if your Ob Nixilis was in the 99 of your Torwalkie deck as well, that would be the case, but they sort of shut each other off in a way. I mean, you still could put Torwalkie in your Ob Nixilis deck, but it would almost be a replacement for your commander. Like someone kills your commander, now it costs 6 or 8 mana, then you put the Torwalkie down because that's going to be a replacement. Those 1 damage effects are now going to become 2 damage because you can't get your commander out, right? But you got to be careful because, of course, it is a replacement effect. It doesn't work there. It will completely shut off your Ob Nixilis commander ability. Made a video recently about Rule 0 and all the interactions that come along with it. And one of the things I talked about in that video is your opponent's attacking you with a bunch of creatures. It's lethal. It's going to kill you. You have some removal in your hand. Is it okay to just shoot off a couple of those creatures off the board before you die? Most people were okay with that scenario. I had one guy say, okay, well, I actually have a Teysa Envoy of Ghost deck where this will just happen incidentally, right? Because Teysa says whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, you destroy that creature, create a 1/1 white black spirit creature token with flying. So if your opponent comes at you for lethal, any creature they're hitting you with is then going to get destroyed, right? Nope, actually it is not. And if you're using this tactic to keep your opponents off of you and don't you dare attack me or else all your creatures will get destroyed, have no fear, opponent. If you do lethal damage, Teysa Envoy of Ghosts will actually not do anything at all, right? And the reason why is the same thing I talked about in another rules video about Oblivion Ring, how Oblivion Ring has a triggered ability that says when this leaves the battlefield, they get their thing back. So whatever you exiled with your Oblivion Ring, when it leaves the battlefield, they get that thing back. But if you die, they're not ever getting that thing back because, of course, your Oblivion Ring isn't actually triggering. And more importantly, when you die, nothing triggers at all. And if I say have 53 life and an Aetherflux Reservoir, and I go to shoot my opponent and they happen to have a lightning bolt in their hand, I've activated my Aetherflux Reservoir, which puts me down to 3 life. My Aetherflux Reservoir ability goes on the stack, targeting that opponent. They can then respond by lightning bolting me in the face, which of course is going to kill me because I only got 3 life left, and my ability from my Aetherflux Reservoir will not resolve. It completely goes away, right? Again, a lot of people might not know this about dying in the game of Magic, particularly in Commander, where of course the game continues on after one person's knocked out of the game. As soon as you die as a state-based effect, any abilities, any spells, anything you have going on completely disappears instantly, right? If I have spells on the stack, abilities on the stack, whatever, if I die, all that stuff completely goes away. It does not resolve. So if I have a Teysa Envoy of Ghosts in play, my opponent attacks me with that Crater Hoof attack to do lethal damage. Of course, when they connect, all those deal combat damage to destroy those creatures triggers will go on the stack, but I'm dead now, so none of them will actually resolve. In fact, I don't even know if they'll go on the stack because, again, it is a state-based effect. You being reduced to 0 or less life, removing you from the game, right? So no, none of your opponent's creatures will actually die in that situation. I have an NG Falkenrath deck. If I trigger its ability to discard and draw, Madness untapping, of course, and discard a card with Madness, if my opponent plays an instant to kill it, can I hold priority to activate my card again before the instant speed goes on the stack? So, couple of things to talk about here. And again, there's a lot of important interactions going on with this question. Really fundamental stuff, particularly in Commander. And of course, we got to take a look at Angie here, right? You're going to activate your Angie, that tap, discard, draw card. And of course, the card you're discarding is Madness. So let's say it's my turn. I have priority. I'm tapping my Angie Falkenrath. Now, if I want to use my Angie Falkenrath's ability and then do something after, I have to tell my opponents that I'm holding priority. I activate that ability and I'm holding priority to do something else. I can't say, I'm tapping this ability, get the triggered Madness effect, and then my opponent responds with removal and then I hold priority. No, it's too late for that. You've already passed priority. You can't pass priority in order to let your opponent do something and then choose to hold priority. Again, just like I talked about in that video a few weeks ago, there is no time machine here where I can go back and undo things. Once you've passed priority, you've passed priority and your opponent gets to do stuff. Now, again, the stack interactions are really, really important with what happens in this scenario. I tap my Angie Falconwrath. I discard a card to draw a card. Okay, the discard a card is the activation cost of this ability, right? Remember, we always got to look where that colon is. So when I activate this ability and I discard a card with Madness, I have not drawn the card yet, and my Angie Falconwrath says, hold on, you have now discarded a card with Madness, and her ability will trigger. Again, that whenever is a triggered ability. So before that first ability has actually resolved, I will trigger the other ability, which will then go on the stack saying, untap Angie Falconwrath. But again, we have to allow our opponents to respond. And I've had other questions about this as well. Can't I just hold priority, let that untap ability resolve in response to removal, and then do it again? No. You cannot hold priority to not let your opponents respond. You can only hold priority when you're adding instant speed things onto the stack. Before anything actually resolves from the stack, you have to let your opponents respond, right? That's really, really important. You can't just say, I'm holding priority to keep your opponents from doing stuff. I can sit there activating a whole bunch of activated abilities over and over and over again, holding priority, but before any of them actually resolve, I have to pass priority. You have to allow your opponents to respond to what you're doing. So if I'm the opponent of this individual and I want to kill their Angie Falconwrath, I'm going to wait till they tap it to use the ability. And of course, activating the ability will trigger the Madness part, which will untap it, but that ability has not resolved. They have to allow me to respond before they can untap their Angie Falconwrath. They can't say, oh, I'm holding priority to tap it and discard again. No, your commander hasn't untapped yet. Unless you have 1,000-year elixir or some other way to untap your commander, the triggered ability on your commander has not yet resolved. Your commander has not untapped. You cannot use the discard ability again. You have to let me respond, and I'm going to kill your commander in response. After your commander's already off the table, that's when whenever you discard a card, it will then untap, which of course does nothing because your commander's dead, and then the draw card will resolve and you'll draw the card from the original ability, right? So yes, it's very important to note that, again, removing something from the battlefield doesn't make the ability that has gone to the stack go away. You will still get those to resolve, but before anything gets resolved off of the stack, whether it be a spell, ability, whatever, you have to pass priority. And again, in the commander format, that's in turn order. That's very, very important. The guy in next turn order goes first, and then the next guy and the next guy, and they each decide whether or not they will respond to what you have done. All right, I'm going to end off with a comment I got from one of my patrons on the Discord. Hey Demo, have you spoken about goad in your videos, particularly in regards to when the game goes down to 1v1? And I will stop there to, yes, cover that interaction because again, there's some rules things here that people might not be aware of. So let's look at the goad ability. Disrupt Decorum, fantastic goad spell. Goad all creatures you don't control. And in brackets there, that reminder text says, until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you, if able. So the important wording there, I mean, there's a couple of important wordings there. First of all, the fact that those creatures attack each combat if able is before attack a player other than you if able. There's a reason they did it that way, because one of them takes priority over the other. And of course, the most important part of the wording there is if able. Some people out there may think that goad makes it so that you can't ever be attacked by your opponent's creatures, and it's only if able. Obviously, the attack only if able is very important. If you have a wall in play with defender, that can't attack. So of course, that is going to supersede the goading part. And again, this comes into a lot of different rules interactions that I've been asked about. Typically in Magic, can't will trump can. If something can't happen, that will almost always trump anything that says you can do it. So if something says you got to attack with that creature, anything that says can't attack is going to trump that. So if there is something on the battlefield that says creatures can't attack, then that will supersede the goad and the goad won't do anything at all. If your creature's tapped, obviously tapping creatures can't attack, that will supersede the goad. So that's a great way to get around goad. Just tap your creatures down on your first main phase or something, right? But more importantly here, the interaction that they were talking was, what happens when I get down to 1v1? Of course, my opponent casts a Disrupt Decorum. You have to attack if able and attack a player other than them. Oh, there is no other player other than them, so I guess I can't attack. No, you have to attack, and you have to attack another player if able. Well, you're not able. It's only 1v1. It's me versus that guy. guy, and I don't have another opponent to attack, so I guess I got to attack them, and that is what happens. In any goad situation, and this is why actually goad decks can be problematic, once you get down to the 1v1 situation, goading doesn't really do much at all. I mean, it forces your opponent's creatures to attack. That part is still happening, but they're certainly not going to attack anyone else because there is no one else to attack. They're going to attack you. So make sure you are aware that once you get down to the 1v1 situation, any goad effect is going to, yes, force your opponent to attack, but they're going to be attacking you because there's no other option. So it doesn't prevent them from attacking you. That is it. That is all. Just some more rules interactions that I have been asked in the comments of my videos, and feel free to always be asking me in the comments of my videos, whether it be this one or any others, some rules interactions you're not sure about, and I will cover it in future videos. That is it for today though, and thanks for tuning in.